The Great Thaw. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the Xeranian exploration vessel, Starweaver. Captain Lyra stood on the bridge, her iridescent scales shimmering under the soft glow of the ship's lights. Her four eyes, each a different shade of violet, scanned the monitors intently. "Report, Science Officer Zan," she commanded, her melodious voice tinged with anticipation. Zan, a lanky Xeranian with deep blue scales, looked up from his console. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates of the anomaly. It appears to be a planet entirely encased in ice." Lyra's antennas twitched with excitement. On screen, the main view screen flickered to life, revealing a gleaming white orb suspended in the darkness of space. Gasps of awe echoed across the bridge as the crew beheld the frozen world. "Fascinating," Lyra murmured. "Begin full planetary scan. I want to know everything about this ice ball." As the Starweaver entered orbit, the ship's sensors probed deep beneath the icy surface. Hours passed as data streamed in, painting a picture of a world locked in a millennia-long winter. Zan's voice broke the contemplative silence. "Captain, you need to see this." His fingers danced across the console, bringing up a new image on the main screen. "We've detected anomalies beneath the ice. Structures. Artificial structures." Lyra leaned forward, her eyes widening. "Impossible. How could anything survive in these conditions?" "Unknown, Captain," Zan replied. "But the evidence is clear. This planet once harbored intelligent life." A wave of excitement swept through the bridge. The Xeranians had encountered countless dead worlds in their explorations, but never one with such tantalizing hints of a lost civilization. "Well then," Lyra said, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth, "it seems we have a mystery to solve. Prepare the terraforming equipment. We're going to thaw this world and uncover its secrets." Over the next several weeks, the Xeranian crew worked tirelessly. They deployed massive orbital mirrors, redirecting the star's energy to slowly melt the ice. As the planet's surface began to change, they sent down probes to gather more data. "Captain," Zan called out one day, his voice filled with disbelief. "We're picking up energy signatures. Faint, but unmistakable. They're coming from deep underground." Lyra rushed to his station. "Show me." The screen displayed a map of the partially thawed planet, with pulsing dots indicating the energy sources. They were scattered across the globe, each one a beacon of impossible survival. "Life," Lyra breathed. "There's still life down there." As the ice continued to recede, more evidence of the planet's past emerged. The ruins of great cities began to appear, preserved by the ice for untold years. But it was the underground energy signatures that captivated the Xeranian crew. They pulsed with a steady rhythm, like the beating heart of a sleeping giant. "Prepare a landing party," Lyra ordered. "It's time we got a closer look at this world and its survivors." The descent to the planet's surface was a journey through time. As the shuttle broke through the clouds, the crew gasped at the sight below. A patchwork of ice and newly exposed land spread out before them, dotted with the skeletal remains of a once great civilization. They touched down near one of the energy signatures, the shuttle's landing struts sinking into the soggy ground. Lyra was the first to step out, her protective suit gleaming in the pale sunlight. She took a deep breath, tasting the alien air through her suit's filters. "Spread out," she commanded her team. "Look for any signs of current habitation, and be careful. We don't know what kind of life has managed to survive here." As the Xeranians explored, they marveled at the resilience of the planet's ecosystem. Despite millennia of ice, life was already beginning to reassert itself. Tiny plants pushed through the mud, and small creatures scurried between rocks. But it was Zan's excited shout that drew everyone's attention. "Captain, over here." Lyra rushed to his position, her heart's pounding. There, half buried in the mud, was a metal hatch. Strange symbols were etched into its surface, still visible after all this time. "It's some kind of entrance," Zan explained, his scanner hovering over the hatch. and the energy signature is coming from inside. Lyra placed her hand on the cold metal. "Hello," she called out, knowing her suit's speakers would amplify her voice. "Is anyone there?" For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, with a groan of protesting metal, the hatch began to move. Lyra and her team stepped back, weapons at the ready but set to stun. They were explorers, not conquerors. As the hatch opened fully, a figure emerged. Bipedal, with pale skin and wide eyes squinting in the unfamiliar sunlight. It wore strange, bulky clothing, and in its hand was a device that Lyra recognized as a primitive projectile weapon. The beam's mouth opened, and a stream of unfamiliar sounds poured out. But the meaning was clear in its defensive posture and the way it held its weapon. "Who are you? And what are you doing here?" Lyra slowly raised her hands, showing she meant no harm. She activated her suit's universal translator, hoping it would be able to decipher this new language. "We come in peace," she said, the words echoing strangely as the translator struggled to convert them. "We are travelers from beyond the stars. We found your world frozen and sought to help." The beam's eyes widened even further, darting between Lyra and her crew. Slowly, it lowered its weapon. When it spoke again, the translator began to make sense of the words. You're not from Earth. You're really aliens." Lyra nodded. "Yes, we are called Xoranians. And you? What do you call yourselves?" The beam stood a little straighter, a mix of fear and pride in its voice. "We are humans, and we've been waiting a very long time for the ice to melt." As more humans emerged from the underground shelter, Lyra realized that they had stumbled upon something extraordinary. These beings had survived an apocalypse, preserving their species and their knowledge through unimaginable hardship. One of the humans, an older female with silver hair, approached Lyra. "I am Elder Sarah," she said, her voice filled with authority. "On behalf of the human race, I welcome you to Earth. Though I must admit, we always thought we'd be the ones doing the space traveling when we finally emerge." Lyra couldn't help but laugh, a trilling sound that seemed to put the humans at ease. "It seems we have much to learn from each other, Elder Sarah. Your people have accomplished something truly remarkable." As humans and Xoranians began to mingle, sharing stories and marveling at their differences, Lyra felt a sense of wonder unlike anything she had experienced in her long career as an explorer. They had come to this world expecting to find only ruins and remnants. Instead, they had discovered a testament to the indomitable spirit of life itself. The great thaw had begun, not just of a frozen planet, but of the barriers between two species. As the ice receded, revealing more of Earth's long-buried surface, Lyra knew that they stood on the brink of a new era, one that would be shaped by the incredible tenacity of these humans and the cosmic perspective of the Xoranians. The adventure was just beginning, and the universe would never be the same. Awakening. As the weeks passed, more and more humans emerged from their underground shelters, blinking in the unfamiliar sunlight. The Xoranian ship, Starweaver, had become a hub of activity, with shuttles constantly ferrying between the surface and orbit. Captain Lyra found herself marveling at the resilience and adaptability of these strange bipedal creatures. On this particular day, Lyra stood at the entrance of one of the larger human settlements, a vast underground city they called Haven. Beside her was Dr. Elena Chen, Haven's chief scientist, and one of the first humans to embrace cooperation with the aliens. "It's still hard to believe," Elena said, shading her eyes as she looked up at the Xoranian shuttle descending from the pale blue sky. "For generations, we dreamed of this moment, of seeing the sun again, of breathing fresh air. But in all our stories, we were alone." Lyra's antenna twitched in amusement. "And in all our exploration, we never imagined finding a species that could endure what yours has. You humans are full of surprises." The shuttle touched down, kicking up a swirl of dust and newly sprouted grass. As the ramp lowered, a group of wide-eyed human children rushed forward, barely contained by their harried guardians. Many of these young ones had never seen the sky before the Xoranians arrived, let alone an alien spacecraft. Easy there, little ones, Lyra called out, her translator converting her trilling speech into the human tongue. There's plenty of time to explore. From the shuttle emerged Zan, Lyra's science officer, along with a team of human and Zoranian researchers. They carried crates of equipment, ready to continue their joint study of Earth's changing ecosystem. "Captain," Zan greeted, his scales shimmering with excitement. "You won't believe what we've discovered in the northern regions. The rate of glacial recession is accelerating beyond our models. And the biodiversity, it's astounding. Seeds and spores that have lain dormant for millennia are sprouting everywhere." Alina's eyes lit up. "Really? We always theorized that life would find a way, but to see it happening so quickly." As the scientists eagerly discussed their findings, Lyra noticed a commotion near the entrance to Haven. A group of humans had gathered, their faces a mix of awe and apprehension. At their center stood a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stern expression. "That's Marcus," Alina whispered to Lyra. "He's the head of our security forces. He's not as enthusiastic about your presence as some of us are." Lyra straightened her posture, all four of her eyes focusing on Marcus as he approached. She had encountered skepticism and even hostility on other worlds before, but something about this human's demeanor set her on edge. "So," Marcus said, his voice gruff, "you're the one in charge of the aliens who decided to melt our ice without asking." Lyra's translator struggled for a moment with the man's tone, but she understood the sentiment well enough. "I am Captain Lyra of the Starweaver. We came here as explorers and found a world in need. Our actions were meant to help, not to intrude." Marcus crossed his arms. "Help? Do you have any idea what you've done? Our entire way of life was built around surviving the freeze. Now, in a matter of months, you've undone millennia of adaptation. How are we supposed to survive on the surface? What if the ice comes back?" A tense silence fell over the gathering. Lyra could sense the unease rippling through both humans and Zoranians. This was the moment that could define their future relationship. "Marcus," she began, choosing her words carefully, "I understand your concerns. Change, especially on this scale, is never easy. But consider this. Your people survived an apocalypse. You preserved knowledge, culture, and hope in the face of unimaginable hardship. If you can do that, you can certainly face this new challenge." She gestured to the bustling activity around them. "We're not here to replace your way of life, but to help you reclaim your world. Our technology, combined with your incredible resilience and ingenuity, can create a future neither of our species could achieve alone." Marcus's frown deepened, but Lyra could see a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Before he could respond, one of the children broke free from the group and ran up to them. It was a little girl, no more than 6 years old, with curious eyes and a mop of curly hair. "Mr. Marcus," the girl said, tugging on the man's sleeve, "did you see? The aliens have 4 eyes, and their skin is all sparkly. Do you think if I ask nicely, they'll let me touch their scales?" The tension broke as chuckles rippled through the crowd. Even Marcus's stern expression softened slightly. He knelt down to the girl's level. "Now, Ava, remember what we talked about. We need to be cautious around new things, I know," Ava finished for him. "But Mommy says the aliens helped make the sun come back, and they're teaching us about all the plants and animals that are waking up." "That's good, right?" Marcus looked from Ava to Lyra, then to the sprawling view of the awakening world around them. For a moment, Lyra could almost see the internal struggle playing out behind his eyes. Finally, he stood and extended a hand to Lyra. It was a human gesture she had learned meant peaceful greeting. "Captain," he said, his voice still gruff but less hostile, "I can't say I'm entirely comfortable with all this, but for Ava's sake, and for all our children, I'm willing to try and work together." Lyra grasped his hand, marveling at the warmth of human skin. "That's all we ask, Marcus. There will be challenges ahead, but I believe that together, We can overcome them." As if to underscore her words, a flock of birds suddenly took to the sky, their calls echoing across the valley. Humans and Xeranians alike turned to watch, wonder etched on their faces. These were the descendants of creatures that had somehow survived the long winter, now free to soar in open skies once again. "Well," Elena said, breaking the awed silence, "I think that's our cue to get back to work. We have a whole world to rediscover." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Xeranian scientists worked alongside human researchers, cataloging new species and studying the rapidly changing environment. They set up weather monitoring stations, trying to understand the long-term effects of the Great Thaw. In Haven and other human settlements, there were countless meetings and discussions about the future. Some, like Marcus, advocated for caution, wanting to maintain their underground homes as a safeguard. Others were eager to return to the surface, to build new cities under the open sky. Lyra found herself mediating many of these discussions, drawing on her years of diplomatic experience. She was constantly amazed by the humans' passion and diversity of thought. Even those who disagreed did so with an intensity that was both challenging and invigorating. One evening, as the newly visible sun was setting, Lyra stood with Elena on a hillside overlooking Haven. The entrance to the underground city was a hive of activity, with humans and Xeranians coming and going, carrying supplies and equipment. "You know," Elena said, her breath misting in the cool air, "a month ago, I never would have imagined this. Us, standing here, watching our people work together." Lyra nodded, her scales reflecting the orange glow of the sunset. "It is remarkable. In all our travels, we've never encountered a species quite like yours. Your adaptability, your drive to survive against all odds, it's humbling." Elena laughed softly. "And here we are, humbled by beings who can travel between stars. I think we both have a lot to learn from each other." As they watched, a group of human children ran by, chasing after a Xeranian scientist who was demonstrating some kind of hovering toy. Their laughter echoed across the valley, a sound of pure joy and wonder. "That," Lyra said, gesturing to the playing children, "is why we explore. Not just to discover new worlds, but to forge connections. To remind ourselves that the universe is full of wonders if we're brave enough to seek them out." Elena nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "For so long, we thought we were alone in the darkness. Now the whole universe is opening up to us." As the last rays of sunlight faded, leaving behind a sky painted with stars, Lyra felt a profound sense of hope. The awakening of Earth was more than just the thawing of ice. It was the birth of a new era, one of cooperation and shared discovery. There would be challenges ahead, of course. Cultural misunderstandings, conflicting priorities, the monumental task of rebuilding a world. But looking at the bustling activity below, the mingling of human and Xeranian forms, Lyra knew that they were up to the task. The great sleep was over. Humanity had endured, had kept their spark of life and knowledge burning through an age of ice. Now, with new friends from beyond the stars, they were ready to take their place in a much larger universe. As Lyra and Elena made their way back down the hill, a shooting star streaked across the sky. In that moment, both human and Xeranian shared the same thought. The future, with all its unknowns, was bright with promise. Secrets of survival. The deep hum of machinery filled the air as the massive elevator descended into the heart of Haven. Captain Lyra stood alongside Elena, Marcus, and a small team of Xeranian scientists, all eager to explore the underground city that had been humanity's refuge for generations. As the elevator slowed to a stop, the doors opened to reveal a vast cavern, illuminated by a network of bioluminescent plants that cast an ethereal blue glow across the metallic structures. Lyra's 4 eyes widened in amazement, her scales shimmering in the soft light. "Welcome to Haven," Elena said, her voice filled with pride. "Our home for the past 1,000 years." The group stepped out into a bustling underground metropolis. Humans of all ages moved about their daily lives, some pausing to stare at the alien visitors with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The air was thick with the scent of earth and growing things, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of the Starweaver. Marcus, still wary but less hostile than before, took the lead. "We'll start with the hydroponics bays. They're the heart of our food production system." As they walked, Lyra marveled at the ingenuity on display. Every inch of space was utilized, from vertical farms lining the walls to intricate water recycling systems that hummed quietly in the background. "This is remarkable," Zan, the Zoranian science officer, exclaimed. "The efficiency of your resource management is beyond anything we've seen in our travels." Elena beamed with pride. "We had to be efficient. Every scrap of material, every drop of water, every joule of energy was precious. Waste meant death." They entered a vast chamber filled with rows upon rows of plants, bathed in artificial sunlight. The variety was staggering. Everything from staple crops to fruit trees, all carefully tended by a team of farmers. "How did you maintain genetic diversity?" Zan asked, his scientific curiosity piqued. One of the farmers, an older woman with calloused hands and a weathered face, stepped forward. "Seed banks," she explained. "Our ancestors brought as many varieties as they could when they retreated underground. We've been carefully crossbreeding and preserving genetic lines ever since." Lyra ran a hand over a leaf, marveling at its texture. "And you've done all this without access to the surface for 1,000 years." Marcus nodded, a hint of pride creeping into his voice. "We had to. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about preserving everything we could of the world we lost. Our history, our knowledge, our connection to the natural world." As they continued their tour, the group was shown recycling facilities that could break down and repurpose almost any material, energy production systems that harnessed geothermal power, and workshops where skilled artisans crafted everything from clothing to complex machinery. In one of the educational centers, they found a class of young children gathered around a holographic display of the solar system. The teacher, a young man with an excited gleam in his eye, was explaining the concept of space travel. "And now," he said, gesturing to Lyra and her team, "we have living proof that we're not alone in the universe. Who knows? Maybe some of you will be the first humans to visit other worlds." The children's eyes widened with wonder, and a flurry of questions erupted. Lyra found herself surrounded, fielding inquiries about everything from the color of alien sunsets to whether Zoranians had pets. As they left the classroom, Elena chuckled. "I think you've just inspired a whole new generation of explorers, Captain." Their final stop was the Central Archives, a vast library containing physical books, digital records, and oral histories passed down through generations. Here, the full weight of human perseverance truly hit home for the Zoranian visitors. "This," Marcus said, his voice solemn, "is our most precious resource, all the knowledge and culture we managed to save. Medical texts, scientific journals, works of art and literature, even recipes and folk tales." Lyra ran her hand along a shelf of well-worn books. "You didn't just survive," she said softly. "You kept your civilization alive." An elderly archivist approached, his eyes bright with curiosity. "We had help," he said, pulling out an old, faded photograph. It showed a group of humans standing next to what appeared to be primitive robots. The early AI systems our ancestors developed. They helped manage resources, maintain crucial systems, even assist in medical procedures and education. Zan leaned in, fascinated. "You integrated artificial intelligence into your society to this degree. Remarkable." The archivist nodded. "They were our partners in survival. Over time, as components failed and couldn't be replaced, their functions were gradually taken over by trained humans. But without them, especially in those early years, we might not have made it." As they left the archives, the group fell into a contemplative silence. The sheer scale of what humanity had accomplished, preserving not just life, but knowledge, culture, and hope through 1,000 years of darkness was almost overwhelming. They returned to the central plaza, where a crowd had gathered, curious about the alien visitors. Lyra could see the mix of emotions on their faces: excitement, fear, hope, uncertainty. An idea struck her. She turned to Elena and Marcus. "Your people have shared so much with us today. Would you allow me to share something in return?" They nodded, intrigued. Lyra activated a small device on her wrist, and suddenly the air above them shimmered. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy sprang into existence, stars and nebulas swirling in breathtaking detail. Gasps of awe rippled through the crowd. Children pointed excitedly, while adults stood transfixed by the beauty of the cosmic display. "This," Lyra said, her voice carrying across the now silent plaza, "is the galaxy as we know it. Each of these points of light is a star, many with their own worlds circling them. And here," she zoomed in on a small, unassuming star, "is your sun, your world. For 1,000 years, you've kept the flame of your civilization burning in the dark. You've faced challenges we can scarcely imagine, and you've emerged stronger for it. And now, as you rejoin the surface world, know this: you are not alone." Lyra gestured to the galactic map. "There are wonders out there beyond imagining. Civilizations to meet, mysteries to unravel, new frontiers to explore. And we, the Xoranians, would be honored to explore them with you." A moment of silence followed her words, broken by a sudden burst of applause. The plaza erupted in cheers and excited chatter. Lyra could see tears in Elena's eyes, and even Marcus wore a smile of cautious optimism. As the excitement died down, Elena turned to Lyra. "You've given us something we haven't had in a very long time, Captain. A horizon to look towards." Marcus nodded in agreement. "I'll admit, I was skeptical about your intentions, but seeing all this," he gestured to the slowly fading galactic map, "it puts things in perspective. We've been so focused on survival, we forgot to dream about what comes after." Lyra felt a surge of emotion. In all her years of exploration, she had never encountered a species quite like humans. Their resilience, their creativity, their ability to adapt and endure, it was truly awe-inspiring. "The next steps won't be easy," she cautioned. "Adapting to life on the surface, integrating with the wider galaxy. There will be challenges." "We're used to challenges," Marcus said with a wry smile. "It's pretty much all we've known for 1,000 years." Elena laughed. "Besides, we've got some experienced guides now, don't we?" As they made their way back to the surface, Lyra's mind was racing with possibilities. The knowledge and technologies humans had developed to survive underground could revolutionize life on resource-poor worlds. And human adaptability and tenacity would make them invaluable allies in exploring the unknown reaches of space. But more than that, Lyra realized, humans brought something unique to the galactic community, a perspective shaped by unimaginable hardship, yet unmarred by bitterness. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, life and hope could endure. As the elevator doors opened, revealing the star-filled sky above, Lyra knew that the universe would never be quite the same. The age of ice was over. A new age of exploration and cooperation was just beginning. And at the heart of it all were the humans, the impossible survivors, the preservers of knowledge, the dreamers who had kept hope alive in the dark. Their journey was far from over. In fact, Lyra realized with a thrill of excitement it was only just beginning. Rebuilding together. The sun rose over a landscape in transition. Where once there had been nothing but ice and snow, now patches of green were spreading like a vibrant patchwork quilt across the Earth's surface. It was on one such patch, a newly formed meadow not far from Haven, that humans and Xoranians gathered for an ambitious project. Captain Lyra stood beside Elena and Marcus, surveying the bustling activity around them. Xoranian anti-gravity platforms hovered nearby, loaded with construction materials, while human workers consulted holographic blueprints projected from Xoranian devices. "I still can't quite believe we're doing this," Marcus said, shaking his head in wonder. "Building a city on the surface. It feels like something out of our old stories." Elena smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Those stories are becoming reality, Marcus, and we're writing new ones every day." Lyra nodded in agreement. "The resilience your people have shown is truly remarkable. I believe this project will serve as a model for cooperation between our species." The plan was ambitious: to build a new city that would combine the best of human and Zoranian technology and design. It would serve as a bridge between the underground havens and the reawakening surface world, a symbol of humanity's return to the stars. As the day progressed, the first foundations began to take shape. Zoranian energy shields protected the construction site from the still unpredictable weather, while human engineers worked alongside alien counterparts to adapt their underground construction techniques to the new environment. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. As the afternoon wore on, Lyra noticed a heated discussion breaking out between a group of human and Zoranian workers. "Is there a problem?" she asked, approaching the group. A human engineer, her face flushed with frustration, turned to Lyra. "With all due respect, Captain, your people's insistence on using these fancy alloys for everything is slowing us down. Our materials might be more primitive by your standards, but they're sturdy and we know how to work with them." The Zoranian architect, his scales shifting to a deeper blue in agitation, retorted, "But our alloys are far more durable and efficient. They'll allow the structures to withstand extreme temperature variations and even moderate seismic activity." Lyra held up her hands, calling for calm. "Both of you make valid points. Perhaps instead of an either-or approach, we could find a way to combine your techniques." Elena, who had joined them, nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. We could use our traditional materials for the main structures, reinforced with Zoranian alloys at key stress points. It would give us the best of both worlds." The human and Zoranian looked at each other, considering the proposal. Slowly, reluctant nods turned into excited discussion as they began to sketch out new designs. As Lyra and Elena walked away, the captain couldn't help but chuckle. "I have a feeling this won't be the last time we have to mediate such disputes." Elena grinned. "Probably not. But that's how progress is made, isn't it? By challenging each other, combining different perspectives." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the edge of the construction site. A group of humans had gathered, pointing at something in the distance. As Lyra and Elena hurried over, they saw what had caused the excitement: a herd of large, shaggy creatures emerging from a nearby forest. "Mammoths," Elena breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. They survived. All this time, they were out there, waiting for the ice to recede. One of the Zoranian biologists rushed up, his scanner trained on the distant animals. "Fascinating. They appear to have adapted to the extreme cold. Their genetic material could be invaluable for our studies on climate adaptation." As word spread, work on the city slowed as humans and Zoranians alike took moments to watch the majestic creatures. For many of the humans, it was their first time seeing such animals outside of old recordings and stories. Lyra observed the mix of emotions on the humans' faces: joy, awe, and a touch of sadness for all that had been lost. She realized that the rebuilding wasn't just about constructing new cities. It was about reconnecting with a world that had become alien to them, rediscovering the wonders of their own planet. As the day wore on, new challenges arose. The unpredictable weather of the thawing world made itself known as dark clouds gathered on the horizon. Wind picked up, threatening to disrupt the delicate construction work. "Storm coming," Marcus called out, his eyes scanning the sky with the wariness of someone used to underground life. "We need to secure everything." The construction site burst into frenzied activity. Humans and Zoranians worked side by side, tying down equipment and reinforcing partially built structures. Lyra was impressed by how quickly the two species coordinated their efforts, overcoming language barriers and differences in technique through sheer determination. As the first heavy raindrops began to fall, Lyra activated the Zoranian weather shields. A shimmering dome of energy expanded over the site, protecting the workers and their day's progress from the elements. Sheltered under the shield, humans and Xeranians watched in awe as lightning danced across the sky and rain lashed against the energy barrier. For many of the humans, it was the first storm they had ever witnessed. "It's beautiful," Elena said softly, standing close to Lyra. "Terrifying, but beautiful." Marcus nodded, a rare smile on his face. You know, in the old stories, rain was often seen as a blessing, a sign of renewal and growth. As if in response to his words, a brilliant rainbow appeared as the storm began to clear, arching over the partially constructed city. A cheer went up from the gathered workers, human and Xeranian alike. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity. As the sun began to set, Lyra stood with Elena and Marcus on a small hill overlooking the construction site. The foundation of the new city sprawled before them, a testament to what could be accomplished when two very different species work together. "It's not just a city we're building," Elena mused, her eyes on the horizon where the first stars were becoming visible. "It's a bridge to the future." Marcus, who had been skeptical of the surface project from the start, nodded slowly. "I'm beginning to see that. We're not just reclaiming our world. We're expanding it, reaching for something new." Lyra felt a surge of pride and hope. "This is why we explore," she said, "not just to discover new worlds, but to forge connections, to grow and learn from each other." As they made their way back to the temporary camp set up near the construction site, Lyra overheard snippets of conversation between humans and Xeranians. They were sharing stories, comparing experiences, finding common ground despite their vast differences. A young human engineer was excitedly discussing new building techniques with a Xeranian architect. Nearby, a group of children, both human and Xeranian, were playing a game that seemed to combine elements from both cultures. In that moment, Lyra realized that they were building more than just a city. They were laying the foundation for a new kind of society, one that bridged the gap between stars and species. As night fell, bioluminescent plants, a gift from the underground cities, were activated, bathing the camp in a soft, ethereal glow. Humans and Xeranians gathered around communal eating areas, sharing meals and stories. Lyra joined Elena and Marcus at one such gathering. As she listened to the humans recount tales of their underground life and saw the wonder on her fellow Xeranians' faces, she felt a deep sense of contentment. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be more challenges, more disagreements, more moments of culture shock and misunderstanding. But looking at the diverse group around her, united in their goal of building a better future, Lyra knew that they would face those challenges together. The Great Thaw had done more than just melt the ice. It had thawed the barriers between worlds and species, opening up new possibilities that neither humans nor Xeranians could have imagined on their own. As the night deepened and more stars became visible in the clearing sky, Lyra saw humans pointing out constellations to curious Xeranians. She smiled, knowing that soon those stars would no longer be distant points of light, but future destinations for this remarkable partnership. The age of isolation was over. Together, humans and Xeranians were stepping into a new era of exploration, cooperation, and shared discovery. And this city, rising from the once frozen earth, would stand as a shining symbol of what could be accomplished when different worlds came together. A new era begins. 5 years had passed since the Xeranians first arrived on Earth, and the planet was almost unrecognizable. The great city of New Haven stood as a testament to human and Xeranian cooperation, its gleaming spires reaching towards the sky, a blend of terrestrial and alien architecture that somehow looked both futuristic and perfectly at home on the rejuvenated Earth. Captain Lyra, now Ambassador Lyra, stood on the observation deck of the city's central tower, her 4 eyes taking in the bustling metropolis below. Humans and Xeranians moved about their daily lives, the once stark differences between them now seeming almost unremarkable in their familiarity. A soft chime announced the arrival of the elevator, and Lyra turned to see Elena and Marcus step onto the deck. Both humans had changed over the years. Elena's hair was streaked with more gray, but her eyes sparkled with the same curiosity and intelligence. Marcus, once wary and defensive, now carried himself with the confident ease of a man who had found his place in a new world. "Admiring the view, Ambassador?" Elena asked, joining Lyra at the window. Lyra's scales shimmered with pleasure. "Every day. I don't think I'll ever tire of it." Marcus chuckled, a sound that still surprised Lyra sometimes, remembering his initial gruffness. "Hard to believe this was all ice just a few years ago. We've come a long way." "That we have," Lyra agreed, "and we have even further to go." They all knew what she meant. Today was a pivotal day in Earth's history. The first joint human-Xeranian deep space mission was about to launch, carrying a crew of both species to explore a nearby star system. "Is everything prepared for the ceremony?" Lyra asked. Elena nodded. "The Stargazer is ready for launch. Crew's been through final briefings. We're just waiting on the final go-ahead from Mission Control." As if on cue, Lyra's communication device chimed. "Ambassador," came Zan's voice, "we're ready to begin. The global broadcast is standing by." The three made their way to the launch site, a massive complex on the outskirts of New Haven. As they arrived, they were greeted by a sea of faces, human and Xeranian. All turned expectantly towards the sleek spacecraft that stood ready on the launch pad. Lyra took her place at the podium, facing not just the crowd before her, but cameras that would broadcast this moment to every corner of Earth and to Xeranian worlds across the galaxy. "Fellow beings of Earth and Zora," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the crisp morning air. "Today we stand on the threshold of a new era. 5 years ago, our peoples were strangers, separated by the vast gulfs of space. Today, we are partners, friends, and fellow explorers." She gestured to the Stargazer, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. "This ship represents more than just a technological achievement. It is a symbol of what we can accomplish when we combine our strengths, when we choose cooperation over isolation, hope over fear." Elena stepped forward next. For 1,000 years, humanity dreamed of returning to the stars. We kept that dream alive through an age of ice and darkness. Now, thanks to our Xeranian friends, we take our first steps back into the cosmic ocean. Marcus, once the voice of caution, now spoke with conviction. "We go forward not just as humans, not just as Xeranians, but as representatives of Earth. We carry with us the hopes and dreams of two worlds, united in our quest for knowledge and understanding." As they spoke, Lyra could see the emotion on the faces in the crowd. Humans who had spent their entire lives underground now looked to the sky with wonder and anticipation. Young Xeranians who had been born on Earth, as much a part of this world as any human, fidgeted with excitement. The ceremony concluded, and a hush fell over the crowd as the final launch sequence began. Lyra, Elena, and Marcus watched from the control room as the Stargazer's engines ignited, a brilliant flare of energy propelling the ship upward. As the spacecraft rose into the sky, cheers erupted from the crowd. Humans and Xeranians embraced, their joy transcending any remaining barriers of species or culture. In that moment, Lyra felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This was why she had become an explorer, why her people roamed the stars, not just to discover new worlds, but to forge connections, to expand the circle of understanding and cooperation across the galaxy. As the Stargazer disappeared from view, its journey just beginning, Lyra turned to her human friends. "So," she said, her eyes twinkling with mischief and excitement, "what shall we do next?" Elena laughed, the sound full of joy and possibility. "Well, there's talk of establishing a permanent research base on Mars, and I've heard rumors that some of our scientists are working on theoretical models for faster-than-light travel." Marcus shook his head in amazement. "A few years ago, I was worried about keeping our underground generators running. Now we're talking about hopping between planets like they're subway stops." Lyra placed one of her 4-fingered hands on each of their shoulders. "Whatever comes next, We'll face it together. The Ice Age forced humanity to adapt, to become stronger and more resourceful than ever. Now those same qualities will serve you well as you take your place among the stars. As they left the control room, stepping out into the bright sunlight of a reborn Earth, Lyra felt a sense of excitement for the future. The great thaw had done more than just melt the ice of a frozen world. It had thawed the barriers between species, between planets, opening up infinite possibilities. In the city below, human children played alongside young Zoranians, their laughter a promise of a future where the differences between them would be celebrated rather than feared. Scientists of both species worked side by side in laboratories, unlocking the secrets of the universe. And in orbit above, the first of many joint missions was beginning its journey to the stars. The age of ice was over. The age of isolation was at an end. Before them stretched an endless frontier of discovery and cooperation, a future limited only by their imagination and their willingness to work together. As Lyra looked out over the thriving city of New Haven, at the green world beyond, and up at the star-filled sky above, she knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had survived the impossible, preserving their spirit and their knowledge through millennia of darkness. Now, with new friends from across the stars, they were ready to write the next chapter in their incredible story. The universe, vast and mysterious, awaited them. And together, humans and Zoranians would explore its wonders, facing whatever challenges lay ahead with the same resilience, creativity, and hope that had carried humanity through the long night of ice. A new era had begun, not just for Earth, but for all the worlds touched by this unlikely partnership. As the sun set on this historic day, Lyra, Elena, and Marcus stood together, their eyes on the horizon, ready to meet the dawning of a brighter, shared future.